My mom thinks a court will give her my house. I bought a small starter home during the housing market crash, completely by myself. I lived there for the better part of a decade before buying a larger home with my now husband. My parents really wanted to live there because it was small and easy to maintain. They have foreclosure in the past, so no way would they be capable of someone giving them a mortgage. Also, my dad is retired and my mom doesn't work. They wanted to rent from me. For a discounted rent they paid off the mortgage, let's say $50K, with an over six-figure inheritance my parents got. A lease was written explaining that it was a prepayment of rent and their rent would be only the taxes and insurance and they would pay $350 per month. Basically only going up when taxes/insurance going up. We signed the lease with all the other typical stuff in it and had it notarized, and that's how it's been for a while now. So to be clear, I'm not making a dime on this house. I recently told them the rent would go up by $3, yes, $3, because of a slight increase in the insurance. My mother lost her shit claiming I'm a money-hungry BH. She was going to rip out everything she did, garden and other cosmetic changes, that I owe her and I can't evict her because it's her house. She's not responsible for the insurance, lease says otherwise. Insurance hasn't been raised in a decade, look at lumber prices. I'm trying to make her pay my personal homeowner's insurance. A court will show me that and give her my house. We have a notarized lease, they are listed as tenants, I am the only one on the deed, my father demanded the bills, zero balls this man has, to see if I'm ripping them off. P.S. This house is a commutable distance from fucking Manhattan, so a studio appointment around here is like $1,500. This is a house with a large yard for their dog. I can easily get $2K for this house, even before they moved in. I sent them copies of the taxes and insurance showing only their address. I'm charging them discounted taxes, you get a discount for paying in full 90 days early. I told them to add and divide by 12 and told my mother to talk to a lawyer so they can slap them straight. I guess my father agreed with me because now she's divorcing my father. Update. I keep getting a lot of the same questions. They have lived there for 4 years now. My mom has always been entitled and an alcoholic, weekends and summers were spent with family. My aunt admitted when I was an adult it was to keep us from being around the alcohol. I mainly did this for my father so he can get a chance to retire after having heart surgery when he worked a physically demanding job for 36 years. They asked to rent the house and pay it off as a prepayment of mortgage, so the only big bill monthly was their health insurance. I had a few others interested in renting my house, I did not ask them for this. They did not co-sign on the mortgage or help with the down payment. Their name is not on my house or deed. There have been rent increases in the past due to the taxes and insurance going up and there was never an issue before. My husband's dad unfortunately passed away without getting to enjoy his retirement, a big reason why my husband told my dad he needs to retire and enjoy life a little, and his inheritance helped pay the down payment on our new house. My mom has a history of putting shit on me and $3 is I guess my line in the sand. I started paying $200 a week after I graduated high school until I moved out at 20, I worked about 65 hours a week on top of school to do this. And yes, shockingly they foreclosed when I moved out. I stupidly put her on my phone plan and basically paid her phone for 2 years until the contract ended because she only paid me for 3 months out of those 2 years. She promised money for my wedding and never delivered. They didn't pay for college, they stopped paying for clothes and school expenses when I was 16 because I had a job. I know this is all a red flag parade, but I trusted my dad more than her I guess and thought I was doing a good thing. I also want to keep this house because I love it and want to move back one day, it's just too small for us as a young family, or allow my child to live there when they go to college, and want to have fun without parents hanging around or racking up dorm costs. Also, she threatens divorce all the time. I doubt she'll actually go through with it. Update. To back up, after the divorce comment they are not, in fact, getting a divorce. They went and celebrated their anniversary at a casino. I did not speak to them for a week. This past weekend I tried to speak to my father and get an apology, hoping he would be in a better frame of mind. He wasn't. He doubled down with the BS saying they didn't realize all the stuff I put in the lease, that my house was uninhabitable when they moved in, it wasn't, that they never would have put work into the house if they were just renters, etc. I asked them to specify and they said stuff about the garage screen door, the shed roof, my husband replaced 2/3 of it with my dad's help, dad did the other 1/3, and by God, the hose. The hose leaked. That in no way affects the livability of the house, but in the words of my lawyer. You agreed to live there in its original condition, buddy, so that's on you, just like not reading the lease. My dad went on to just say all these things they were doing for me and not acknowledging a damn thing I was doing for them. At that point I said some not nice things, including the alcohol-induced dementia everyone mentioned. They wanted to know if they were still gonna be able to take my son to the fair, not a fat chance in hell. I told him I didn't want either one of them around me or my family until they stopped being delusional and to decide to pay the increase or GTFO. I then cried when I got off the phone and my husband was upset with all of this. Cut to today. My mother called me asking what needed to be done to resolve this because not being able to see my son was upsetting to them. I told them they needed to apologize for what they called me and that they were out of line. Well, you guys, they were scammed. My parents were fucking scammed. That's what this was all about. In my area, homeowners get daily calls/texts and letters from people wanting to buy their house. It's not new in this market. I have even told them these letters are trash. Well, my parents were getting calls from people saying they were going to be renting the house. They acted like they were representing me. Someone also showed up to their house and was being very pushy about trying to see my mom in the house. This all happened before I mentioned the rent increase. So when my mom heard rent increase, she thought these phone calls and this person was real? Like, I was going to raise the rent to something they couldn't afford and force them out. This was before I told them it was $3, but even after they thought I was throwing them out. I asked them why they didn't ask me, and they said they were scared and had no place to go. I explained to them that's not even how it works. I can't rent a place with tenants, there's a whole legal process and they should know this. They apologized for how they acted, everything they said, and were embarrassed. They were even more embarrassed that they believed this person and are officially old people that fell for a scammer because they thought they were smarter than that. They hadn't given them money or information yet. I told them they were probably setting them up for it. Scammers will pretend to be renting a house and take people's first, last, and security, and when the new tenants show up, the house is already occupied and they're screwed out of the money, or pretend they need money to let them keep living in the house. I have no idea why they believe or fell for this person or why they never asked me in the first place, since I don't and wouldn't hire a representative for my one house. Their cameras were off when they came, but they're going to file a police report anyway. I told them to call the cops next time to file for harassment or trespassing if these people call or show up again. I got my apology from both parents. I explained everything in the lease and why it was legally written that way. I explained to them I can't throw them out on the street on a whim, and as long as they pay the minimum bills to live there, taxes and insurance, I was going to keep my end of the deal. So I guess that's my update. They're not getting evicted for now, but I might have to start monitoring them more closely to see if they fall for other dumb shit. PSA, a lot of us seem to have boomer parents, so I wanted to make you all aware of something. My parents have Medicaid, which in the great ol' US of A means that if they have a large medical expense, they ain't paying for shit until all their personal assets are utilized. This means draining bank accounts, taking property, and even requesting back gifts from up to 5 years ago. So for example, your mom falls and breaks a hip and winds up in a rehab. Your mom gave you $20K for a new roof a few years ago. The government will demand that money before they pay for the rehab. They can take their savings and demand property in their name sold to pay for it. They legally cannot touch their car, but that's it. I know this from personal experience with a grandparent, and all of you should too, to help protect your parents.